Welcome to this month's Divine Dialogues call. I am so excited to be joined by my friend Harmesh. Harmesh is a spiritual life coach. We did the same certification. She's done a whole bunch more than that. And she is such a beautiful soul who's not only sharing her wisdom in her most recent book, but she has also been building this really robust toolkit. And with the things that we're going to talk about today, you're going to see how badly she's had to lean on the things that she has been developing
Yeah,
in the last little while. Um, these conversations are spontaneous. They are just people getting together and talking about the truth of what it means to live a spiritual life. So, Harmesh, thank you so much for bringing your heart and your story to our group today.
I'm really, really excited to be here, to be honest. I love talking. I love just letting things out there. I love having deep conversation. And I think you know that anyway, because when we met earlier this year, and I was just like, wow, that was such a fulfilling conversation that we had.
I was just going to say
Yeah.
like, that of all, when we make these internet connections, especially when they're in big group programs where there's hundreds of
Mm,
people, it's not often that you get to, first of all, have those connections in the first place. And then second of all, get to
yeah.
actually do it in real life. And
Yeah.
it was so wonderful. And I think that this speaks to your authenticity and mine, how
Yeah.
seamless it was because we showed up
Mm.
in our truth in the first place. The in-person connection was just a natural extension. It wasn't like this awkward trying to get to know each other.
No, not at all. And it's weird because I've been really fortunate the last sort of 18 months or so, because since the pandemic, I've done a lot of online programs like many of us have,
Mm-hmm.
and met a lot of people in the online space. But I've been fortunate enough to really meet quite a few of those people, including yourself, um, in real life. And it's been interesting that not all of the connections I've had
Oh,
have, bless you,
thank you.
um, and not all of the connections that I've had have been as seamless as that. So to me, it's been very interesting to see how people are authentic and they're not,
Mm-hmm. I think
you
that
know.
speaks to almost social media culture. Like I've been on the internet since to date myself here since like the early 90s, but like with social media, um, people who are doing it for their businesses, people who are used to having those conversations and showing up and as themselves and being seen, I think it's almost a little bit easier than someone who is maybe mostly scrolling. They'll share pictures of their dog or their
Mm.
morning breakfast or whatever. Um, and so that it's not that they're inauthentic, they just don't know how to bring all of themselves to a virtual environment. I think there's something in that. I think also some people are genuinely not authentic, but they wouldn't be attracted to
That's
the
what
kind of programs
I
you're
was gonna
doing,
say. I
you
think
know?
there's some people who do show up
Yeah.
every single day, well, every single day, every so often, and they are, doing videos or lives or whatever. And when I have met them, it's the energy is off,
Mm,
and it's kind of I've thought to myself, oh, you're not the person that I've been interacting with.
hmm.
So it's kind of, I mean, I know that we're not going to like every single person that we ever meet,
Of
you
course.
know, but I think when you've been chatting with someone or in a group environment with someone or in a community even like this, if you're in that community and then you meet up and it's like, oh, there's a bit of a disconnect here.
Yeah. Which is kind of
But
disappointing because you show up
yes,
with your whole heart and you're in those spaces because you're hungry for that connection in the first place.
exactly. And I think that's what, sometimes the self development coaching industry, whatever you want to name it these days, is sometimes it gets a bit of a bad rap
Hmm.
because it's like we're doing the self development or we're working on ourselves, but what is it that we're actually doing
Yeah.
if we're not trying to be authentic?
Yeah. I had a really hard time for years of articulating what I do because I come at it
Mm.
from all these different ways, right? So I help people
Yeah.
develop their intuition. I help them build their spiritual practice. I help them like stand in their truth and connect with their guides and
Mm.
whatever. And when I distill it, what I help people do is become the truest version of themselves, which I believe is our purpose. I believe that's why we
Yeah,
came into this life. But
exactly.
that's not sexy. If I sell you, if I put on a sales page, I'm going to help you become the truest version of yourself. There is going to be a part of you that goes, well, fuck you. I know how to do that already. But no, you don't, because we have our conditioning, we have our baggage, we have our generational stuff, our cultural stuff, our past life stuff. Like things get in the
Mm.
way of us being the truest version of ourselves. But I
Yeah.
don't think it's a problem people necessarily recognize.
No, and also what I have found is just even when I do sometimes discovery calls with people is, and this is in no way to, kind of belittle their work or judge them, but I think sometimes people are a lot further along the path or the journey that they're trying to go along than
Mm,
they actually are.
yeah. But that's because the people that were helping them before had a vested interest in keeping them stuck.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's really kind of interesting because I think this is something that we actually spoke about when we met, in how a lot of these programs that we do sign up to, and I've done it myself, is like there's this big promise, the sexy promise, like you're saying, here's the sexy promise, you're going to have this after 3 months, you're going to have this after 8 weeks, whatever it is, and you go through that and you do all the things, you tick all the boxes, and you're still not
There.
where you think you should be. But
Mm-hmm.
then guess what, now this coach has got an additional thing that you can do, and it'll take you that bit further.
Yeah.
And and I think that's really harmful to people, to be honest.
For sure. I think you need to sell the experience you're selling. Don't sell the 100% experience if your $500 program is 10% of the journey. Sell the
Exactly.
10%. Like let the 10% stand on its own. And if it can't, why are you selling it?
Yeah. I mean, another thing that I think, that I actually realized, because I put a post up yesterday, or maybe the day before, it might have even been this morning, I can't even
Time's
remember.
weird like that.
I don't know. But someone that I know, like I've been friends with her for a very long time, and she had commented on the post about, you know what, this is so right. And it's because we don't slow down enough to fully know ourselves.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, that's exactly true. Because again, in our coaching, self-help, self-development industry, we keep talking about people in burnout
Mm-hmm.
and trying to get people out of burnout, trying to get people to slow down. But what a lot of these programs do is actually keep us in that same cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right in what you're saying. If you've got a $500 program and it's for 10%, just do the 10%. Slow the people right down to
Yeah.
the 10%, because they will probably get more benefit out of that than trying to rush them through into whatever else you've got in that program.
Well, and that inability to slow down, like that's capitalism, that's the patriarchy, that's our programming.
Mm,
Like again, there is someone who has a vested interest in us staying in this hamster wheel, right? Where we're just going.
exactly.
It's funny that you say that. So I just finished a 9-month spiritual mentorship, which was
Mm,
one of the most profound of my life. And I include the 5 years I spent working with ayahuasca. Like this kicked that's ass
yeah.
in 9 months. And in my last one-on-one with her, we were talking about like the things that I do and how I spend my time. And I was like, well, I'm in spiritual book club and I have my spiritual membership and I'm a spiritual coach. And I talk to my plants as part of my meditation and I started listing it off. And she was like, when do you just like human? And this is a spiritual mentor. She was like, when do you
Mm,
just human? Like when I was like, well, when I'm complete, this was like the most telling thing. When I'm completely burnt out, I'll veg in front of Netflix. but I had to get to the point of burnout because I couldn't do the other things.
You couldn't
She
just
was
be
like,
human.
I think you just need to be a person instead of being a spiritual person for a little while.
Yes. I know, I completely agree with that because I think we are so, and again, I think over the last maybe 3 or 4 years, it's almost like I've done a complete circle because I was at the place of like starting to detach from a lot of things, becoming more minimalist, all of that type of thing. And then I got caught up in this self-development cycle and I was like, yes, I need this and that. And now, like you, I've just finished a 9 month kind of mentorship with a nervous system coach. And now I've gone back fully to I'm just detaching from everything. And everything doesn't need to have a reason or an answer. It can just be.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're always looking for the reason behind something when something happens. Why did this happen? What is the lesson that I'm learning? And we go through, this checklist of what we think we should be doing instead of just saying, okay, this is what it is. This is just part of the human experience.
There's a part of me that's like, yeah, I agree with that. And then there's another part of me that's like, no, sometimes we just don't know what the reason is yet. Because I do think that like, whether it's something we need to claim within ourselves, something we need to see about ourselves, something that is a pattern that's repeating because we need to heal it. Like, I do think there tends to be a nugget. I think where we get in shitty patterns with ourselves is when we're in the middle of it and we try to figure out what the lesson is. And I had this about anger, right? This was like a big part of my book. When you're pissed off and you're like right in the middle of it, that's not the time where you're like, what's the lesson here? Because you're not using the part of your brain that can extract the lesson. No. And I think that that's the same of any experience, even the good stuff. Like we always talk about, oh, everything happens for a reason, or it is what it is when it's a bad thing, but it's the good stuff too.
Yeah.
And I think that when we try to figure out when we're in the middle of it, we're actually robbing ourselves of the lesson because the experience of it is probably part of the lesson.
Exactly. And I think it does really depend on how, I hate to use the word, you've been taught in these programs. Mm-hmm. Because I think if you're someone who has built that self-trust within yourself, then you will know okay, let me experience this how I need to experience it. I can figure that stuff out a bit later down the line. Whereas if you still don't have that trust, you're still like looking for, like you said, the answer. What is the lesson? What am I here to learn from this? Mm-hmm. And you may miss, like you said, the actual lesson.
Which of course means it's going to repeat itself because we're just really lucky that way.
Yeah.
I think there's a piece in that. And I think we should kind of circle back to what we were talking about before we started recording. There is a piece in being able to surrender to it because, I find moments where I'm like, I know there's a lesson here. I don't know what it is. And I have to that has to be my resolution. Like I have to be okay with the not knowing. Yeah. Now you're someone who, I love that the last 9 minutes was specifically around nervous system calibration because that is so fucking needed, especially in our work. Yeah. You have got a toolbox. You've got Akashic record, or not Akashic records. You've got human design. You've got gene keys. You've got all the stuff that we did in our spiritual life coaching. Yeah. You've now got this nervous system stuff, which is really tied to embodiment, right? Because it's easier to be in the body when we can regulate the body. And while all of this is happening, you are traveling and jumping time zones. You are having your ceiling literally cave in at your house. You have the stress that comes with just running a business, the stress that comes with just being a woman in this era. You have all of this happening and you have kept your shit together. Tell us your secrets.
You know what? I wish I could just bottle it up. Just sell it, because you know what, there was a part of me years ago where I could have kept my shit together, but it was by completely bypassing every single emotion. And what I have been lucky enough to learn and to be able to do is this whole thing about, can I just let it be? So I know everything that is going on right now, and we said this before we started this conversation, or started recording, that all of my friends, people who follow me on Instagram, who I'm sharing this kind of challenge with at the moment, everyone else is so outraged. They're like, why aren't people doing this? Why aren't people doing that? Oh my God, I feel sorry for you, blah, blah. And it's like, that's great, but I'm actually good. I'm kind of being able to hold, yes, I am annoyed. Yes, I am pissed off. And you know what? I went through a period of feeling really sad because this is my home.
You haven't been
And
there long either.
I know, I've been here just over, nearly 18 months.
Like, this should
So,
not be a problem.
exactly. And the first sort of year or so has been great here. And it's like, and I think what I liken it to, it's to my safety, because my home is my safe place. And like it is for many people, you go there to recuperate, to rest, to relax, to shut the outside world off, for yourself. And to feel like the actions of someone else, I've been very fortunate enough, I've not been burgled. But I think a lot of people who have been burgled say they feel violated.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt. Is like someone has violated my space.
Mm-hmm.
And there kind of came a point when I thought, okay, what can I, and maybe this is why I had the 2-week trip to the States, because I had to completely surrender.
Mm-hmm.
I had no control. I wasn't in the space constantly hearing the water or hearing anything that could, happen. I had to completely leave it on its own. And I think for me, like the lesson for me was about surrender and detachment from actually things.
Mm-hmm. Well, also the way you said before we recorded, you said, well, it's not like I can just stand here and hold the ceiling up.
No, I can't.
And like, I feel like that is actually the most beautiful part about surrender. And I say that as someone who sucks at surrendering, because what you've done is recognized what is actually within your power to change. And that is where you're investing your energy. So you can call the insurance company, you can call the plumber, you can get the reno people to come in and fix shit, but you're not losing sleep over all the things that are beyond your control.
No, and there would have been a time in my life when I would have done that
Same.
and have done that. But I think what I've been able to do is, what is actually my bigger objective right now? My bigger objective is to work on my business. Do I want to give the energy for working on my business to this thing that I have no control over? And that has enabled me, just that sort of thought or that mindset shift has let me get on with my business.
That's also, though, you having done the work to self-regulate.
Yes.
Because if your nervous system wasn't regulated, you wouldn't be in a position to make that choice.
No, and the thing is, again, that has been something that I've done before, because I've had a similar situation in the last flat that I lived in. It was nowhere near as bad as what's going on now, but that time, oh my God, the anxiety, the way I can remember how my body felt. I was completely tense the whole time. I was phoning people up and being angry down the phone, because it's like, again, you're destroying my living space. But I know that now it's my body doesn't feel that same way, because I realize that actually my safety isn't to do with the things that I have. Like, my safety is in me. So as long as I'm safe in here, then it doesn't really matter what's going on out here.
You're basically a walking case study for your work, frankly, at that point.
Yeah, pretty much. at the moment.
Honestly, though.
Which my coach is like really happy about, because she's like, this is it in practice.
Yeah.
She said that, you know, if I could film it and put it into a testimonial, because with nervous system work, it's really hard to explain to people how beneficial it really is. And because it affects everybody so differently, because we all have different baselines, we all protect ourselves in different ways, it's hard to show one person and their story and you still be able to relate to that, to know that the work will work for you. So she was very much like, yeah, let me just film everything that's going on and like try and present that to people some way.
Yeah.
You know?
I think there's something to that, though, about the intangibility. It's not, well, it is intangible, our work, but then it's also like, how does one even recognize the shifts? You have a perfect before and after. I had a leaky condo and lost my complete shit. I'm in the middle of an even worse situation, and I'm like, oh, everything's fine. Like, you have this really beautiful before and after. And I think that if we don't do the work of knowing ourselves and how we respond, it's really hard to even recognize our own growth in those areas, because we're not always going to have a before and after. Like, one thing that I had learned about in my own healing was this idea of the window of tolerance. Is that something you guys talked about?
Yes, and this is exactly what my coach has been telling me. She's like, your window of tolerance used to be like this. It is now like this. That's what this nervous system work does for you.
100%. And for someone who doesn't know, your window of tolerance is basically your capacity to handle shit. And depending on the work you've done, the healing you've processed, and also if you slept well, if you've had too much caffeine or whatever, it's variable and it's going to move. The ideal is that the more work you do, the greater the window of tolerance is, not so much that you can handle a lot of shit, but so that you're not losing your shit. And the beautiful thing is, with a greater window of tolerance, you have like that beat before the reaction, so you can choose. Whereas when you have a tiny window of tolerance, you go instantly into reaction and there is no choice. You're talking from your ego, you're talking from your wounding, you're talking from your conditioning. It's ugly. I actually literally, so I've been working 7 days a week for like 6 weeks straight. And I've gone a little loopy. Like, especially last night, I went to bed at like 3 and I was like, you're like deliriously giggling. And last weekend, I'm totally like not proud of this, but my brother was here. We have a bit of a rough relationship anyway. And my window of tolerance, because you know, the when you burn yourself out, it starts to shrink, right? Mine was so small that he said something and his voice raised a tiny bit, and my response was literally, get the fuck out of my house. And like, as soon as it happened, I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad. And I kind of like had a bit of a guilt spiral. And then I was like, also, that's what we needed in that moment, because I did not have the capacity to cope with that conversation, not at that intensity. And then also having the awareness that even with my reduced capacity, I stood up for myself. Like, my brother was my biggest bully when I was a kid. It's like, I stood up for myself. I honored my need in the moment. I didn't do it gracefully, but I didn't like, anyway, the point is that even when it's messy, sometimes it's still working. But knowing yourself, you can witness what your capacity looks like.
And I think you've explained it really, really well, what this work is actually about, the nervous system work. And you've also made the really good point that, you know, even for me, like, just because I have this seems to be quite a big window of tolerance for things that just go on, there are still going to be days where I'm not going to have that. And you know what? It's okay. And I think that's what the other thing that, you know, I wish people gave themselves more grace with, is that just because you've done healing, or you've gone through a healing journey, you've done some self-development, it doesn't mean you're all of a sudden a perfect person. You know, you can still get angry at people. Like the people who live above me, I haven't seen them since I got back from the States, and I actually don't want to see them, because my anger has shifted actually towards them. And and the things that they have not done in order to, have raised this issue that to their own landlord.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of, at the moment, if I see them, I'm not going to be in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that about myself. So I can, it's like you said, that beat before the actual reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But if on some off chance I do meet them in the hallway or out in the car park, am I going to be able to do that? I actually don't know.
Well, and it'll depend on what's happening that day, because
Exactly.
who knows where the window of tolerance is going to be.
Exactly. So it's okay to not be perfect with everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to have those days. And I just wish that people would actually just give themselves a bit more grace around that and realize it's okay to be angry, to be sad, to be upset about things.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't have to have this mask or whatever of perfection all the time.
Yeah, spiritual and perfection are not the same thing. And I think sometimes, particularly when we have people in our lives who are not comfortable with this path, they can weaponize it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, maybe you should just go and like meditate for a second. Or like, oh, that's so weird. Like, I totally thought someone who was like spiritual wouldn't react like that. No, because we're still fucking human. It's why I teach with F-bombs. You know what I mean? Like, I had this conversation at a conference last week with this woman, and she worked in the oil fields. So she was like a little rough and tumble, and she was around like dudes all the time. Right. And I said, she's like, what do you do? I said, I'm a spiritual life coach. And she kind of like, she's like, oh yeah. And I said, yeah, I take a different approach to it, because I think that our humanity needs a seat at the table. Like, we can't expect ourselves to be perfect. We have to give ourselves grace. And I said, and I do drop F-bombs, and I am covered in tattoos and like all these things. And I feel like there are some people who that will not be aspirational for whatsoever. They're looking for the yogi guru on Instagram with 1 million followers. But for the majority of people who spiritual work has felt just slightly out of reach because they felt like they were too rough around the edges. They felt like they weren't good enough. They felt like they weren't pure enough. You know what I mean? Because we carry this wounding. Like, I'm a recovered Catholic. You came from the Sikh tradition, if I remember correctly. Our programming gets us pretty good about who we're supposed to be, right? And we need these other flavors of this work, so more of us can feel okay doing it. And the more of us doing it, the more of us who are giving ourselves grace in those imperfect moments.
And I think that's why, like, I think I'd mentioned to you earlier in the week that it's really funny that at the moment my business is just like really changing, because I've come to these kind of realizations that you know what, not everyone is on that spiritual path, but they still want to be served and supported, and we still get to do that, and that comes through your humanity, not because I'm a spiritual guru or I'm a spiritual coach or I'm the it's through who you are as a human being and being your authentic self.
I think you bringing in the embodiment at the forefront of your services is so important too, because it doesn't matter how spiritual somebody is, they've got a body. They got to exist in here, and we have to figure out how to navigate the world with that. That somatic piece is the stuff that's missing in even most therapy.
Well, it's funny that you should say that, because one of the clients that I have, I broached the subject with her about depression, because she's so disconnected from her body, and she's a very spiritual person, but there is no connection between mind and body, and it is, she has the telltale signs, and it's really hard to help someone with this kind of work if you have that disconnection. I don't think you can just jump into somatic or nervous system work, because I think if you do that, or if you have someone who's guiding you to do that, I think it actually puts you more on that traumatic path than you're already on. I think you have to really connect to yourself before you can start that. And whether that's, you know, the mirror exercises, you know, looking at yourself naked in a mirror, or just talking to yourself, looking deep into your eyes, I think until you get that connection, you can do all the somatic work that you want, but it's still not going to heal you.
Mm-hmm. And I think the flip side is you can do all the spiritual work you want. The body will eventually become the blocker, because that's what happened for me.
Exactly.
You know, I started like personal reflection 2007, 2008 is when I first started ceremonies, and like ayahuasca ceremonies. And that was it was a really big shift for me, because I was hugely disassociated, very much in my masculine, worked in corporate, was like, go, go, go. Yeah. Like, this is the way. And I actually went into ceremony the very first time going, this is going to be a tool for me to connect with my subconscious. I had no idea the divine was going to kick me in the ass and be like, nah, bitch, we're going to do this instead. Like, I had no idea what I was signing up for. And why am I talking about that? Oh, yes. It was my very first ceremony, I had asked a question, and I was asking about my weight. I didn't get the answer until December of 2020. Do you know how mad I was? I was like, 12 years? 12 fucking years? Are you kidding me? I was livid. I yelled at my guides. I stomped my feet. I was petulant. I was like, and it was this idea that, like, you know, I was deciding it was on my timeline, but all of that aside, the body was the part that was missing. So here I was working with plant medicines, meditating my face off, you know, going on these retreats and talking to angels and developing my intuitive gifts, psychic as fuck. And that's all amazing, but I'm completely disassociated from my body. I'm operating from the heart up, which is probably what was happening with your client as well. I didn't feel safe in my body. I used to fall asleep every time I gave Reiki, because I couldn't ground myself enough that the energy would just like come through me, and I'd pass out every single time.
Wow.
The body will become a blocker, whether it's because you're doing psychological work and then you need to actually bring it into the body. If you're doing spiritual work, you're going to have to bring it into the body. At some point, it comes back to the body. Yeah. And that's why you matter. Long story long.
Just put that out there. That's why you matter.
Honestly, though, like, we need more of you, Harmesh. Can you clone yourself? Is that an option?
Well, you know what? It's really interesting that you say that, because this is the exact problem that my coach, and I don't know if you've heard of a lady called Alicia Tichel or Tichel. She is also a nervous system coach, mentor, but they know how important this work is. And even though, you know, on social media, like with every single thing that's ever out there, you've got people who just kind of do a 6-week course and they think they're an expert in it. And it's no...
I literally wrote that on a sales page yesterday. Sorry,
don't worry, I've got a post coming. But it's really hard, like, because I've been in the work for 18 months, and I know that this is just the beginning of the work. This isn't even mastery of the work. And when I see some of these coaches saying, we're going to give you nervous system coach, nervous system training, nervous system support, it's like, but how? What are you actually supporting these people with? Because are you taking them through the whole, this is your fawning response, this is your protection, this is your freeze, are you explaining that in terms of the safety that they feel? Are they connected to their body?
To be able to identify the signal, like, how are they supposed to change the pattern? How are they supposed to recognize it when it happens?
Because a lot of them are still up here in their head. So that, like, my nervous system coach and Alicia as well, they know this work is needed, and they are trying to put it out there in a, you know, way with integrity. And so, I mean, I guess you could say I'm now going along that same sort of path by using it in my work. But we need more people to actually bring this into the open a lot more. But I think the problem is that people want the quick fix.
Yeah, because it's not sexy.
And the nervous system work isn't the quick fix.
Comes back to the beginning.
You know, it's about the slowing down. And I think because people want things now, they're not prepared to be in a 9-month program or a 10-month program unless they've done some kind of self-development before, and they realize the benefit of it. But until we get more people in to do this kind of work, there's not going to be many of us around. And it's also, yourself, coaching industry has bad coaches and good coaches. A lot of the time there's not many good coaches, and they end up picking up the people who have been constantly just signing up with bad coaches. And then you're kind of the last resort.
And you're having to undo all of the bad messaging they received.
Exactly.
Because I think that one of the unfortunate things is that bad coaches tend to be great marketers.
Exactly.
Which sucks, because I can't tell you how many times I have watched, and there's like comparisonitis and all of the work that's within that. But my human self, who is not trying to rise above, will watch people who have taken a workshop and decide that they're now going to teach this philosophy, and it's dangerous, and
it is
really
dangerous, and I think, you yourself, I know you have done years and years and years of work in different modalities, and you have the experience to back that up. And when someone has just done a workshop and it's like, okay, now I'm going to teach this, it's like, yeah, you are good at marketing, because now what are those people going to be left with?
Well, it also gives the work a bad name.
Yes.
The first Akashic record reading I had, it was weird. I had, for probably 2 years before, I had this nudge that I was supposed to have somebody read my records.
Yeah.
The first record reading I had, this woman basically sat down and told me a bunch of shit about myself that I already knew. And I was like, is that like 2 years? Because it was my intuition. I was like, there's something here, there's something here. And when I had it, I was like, really? Like that? Wow, that's a bit of a, that was a lot of buildup for nothing.
Yeah.
And then I had a reading. Oh, I've had multiple since then, but readings with people who are masters of the records. And I've been reading for years. I am not a master of the records. That's not my specialty. They do beautiful healings in the records. They channel with like pristine clarity. They will take you through beyond this life. This is what's going on in your past lives. These are what your connections are ancestrally. This is the pattern that's playing out because you and so have had this life together. They will give you like this beautiful stuff, and it resonates true. So I know it's not just that it's interesting, that I'm like, oh, but if I hadn't trusted that I was getting the nudge towards that for a certain reason, I never would have had those readings. I never would have pursued my own training in it, because I would have thought I'd just be sitting there telling people things they already knew about themselves, and who cares? Like,
but see, that's interesting you say about the nudge, because you clearly, you had that intuition. You could feel that that's what you wanted to do. And a lot of the time with programs, we don't do that. We think we should have that program because it's going to give us X, Y, and Z. It's not because we feel that we want to do it.
So, moment of truth, Harmesh, when I joined our coaching program, I didn't read the sales page. And it's not like I was like rolling in dough, money guns to the sky or whatever. I actually sat down and I was like, I don't know how we're going to afford this right now, but like, I think I need to do the certification. And then at the end of the certification, I was like, I don't fucking know. It's not a secret, I was not super impressed with the program. And I had this moment of like, why did you make me spend that money? And then I have relationships like I have with you, and where I get to see people who are this beautiful testament to not their work, but the work. And my network has grown in beautiful ways, and I've made wonderful friends, and I get to like have people I can refer people to. And that's why I was there. It didn't teach me anything really, but it built my network, and it gave me a piece of paper that I can now walk around and say I'm certified.
I think, you know what, and I think that's exactly what I have been able to take away from it, is I have a coaching certification, and no one can actually take that away from me. Not because I coach in that way, but I have the certification. And actually my work is over here doing these other things.
I know
you
there's a
know.
lot of debate about how valid certification is in the coaching world. And, everyone and their dog is like, well, yeah, but like TikTok says I can just hang out my shingle and I can whatever. And it is an unregulated industry. You and your opinions can just hang out your shingle. But I feel like I'm such an asshole today. This is what sleep deprivation does to me. It makes me really cheeky. But like, I feel like when you go through a certification, even if it's a bad one, you get to build a framework, you get to build foundations, you get to have principles of ways that you want to show up. And it gives you, it's an invitation, you can take it or leave it, but it's an invitation to do the work with a different degree of integrity that you don't have the option to have if you just don't have exposure to that experience.
Yeah, and I do agree with that, because I think if I had never taken like a 10-week business coaching course, if I had not done the program that we were in, I probably wouldn't know how to structure my business, and I'd probably still be flailing around somewhere,
totally
trying to, put myself out there. It showed me certain things, but a lot of those programs also showed me how I didn't want to do things. And I think
that's a
that is
lesson too.
also
It's
very
important.
helpful. Yeah. It's important not to just do the things that will help you, but also show you what practices and things you don't align with yourself.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, who do you want to be as a coach or a spiritual coach or healer or whatever kind of field you're in? Who do you actually want to be? Because even the people that you look up to, sometimes it can kind of be, wow, actually, I'm surprised that their practice is this way, or they practice this kind of thing. So, that's what I think, that self-trust is really important. So that you're not that you're relying on people, but that you're not constantly looking at other people for you to inform what you're doing.
It's a total deferral of your power.
Which we're not about that in this space.
That's how we did things in the past. Now we're like embodied in our power.
Yeah. I think that's what I really have come to learn, that, and it might sound arrogant to some people, but I do not care what anybody thinks of me. I don't, if I put a post up and no one likes my post, that really does not matter to me. That's not how my life is run. And it is such a it's so interesting, because I know that I grew up constantly wanting other people to like me and getting the validation because of religion and culture and all of those kind of things. But now I sometimes surprise myself, like, wow, where did that come from?
What surprises me now is when I do care. I'm like, whoa. And again, 9 times out of 10, it's my window of tolerance is down.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the conference I went to last week, I obsessed over what I was going to wear. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, like, I am a very complex individual. I'm leather pants and I'm a sequin jacket. I am a fucking romper. I am all of it. So like, what facet of me do I show up as? Because there is not one outfit that brings all of it to the table. And it's a bit of a mind fuck, because for me, I've done this work of like reclaiming all my weird little bits and been like, yep, it doesn't really make sense together, but it's still the truth. Yeah. This is who I am. But when you're meeting someone cool for the first time,
I liked. Sorry, they were good pictures.
Oh, thanks. And then it's like when you.
But I know what you mean though, because like I know myself. One, I'm a Gemini anyway, so like we've got multiple personalities, and I also am a manifesting generator, so I have my fingers in all the pies. And for me, I have a similar problem. It's like sometimes I want to dress up, sometimes I'm just a jeans and a t-shirt kind of person. So how do you put all of that together to, and we're told to market ourselves in a certain way. And I think that's where I really have a bit of an issue, because it's like, well, I'm just going to come as myself.
Hmm.
If you don't, if you think that you have to be taught embodiment by a woman who's in a sexy dress, then you need to go somewhere else,
Hmm.
because that's not embodiment. That is still, in my eyes, someone who's seeking validation.
Yeah.
Because if you were truly comfortable in your own skin and embodying who you are, and that's not what you usually wear, you would just wear your normal clothes.
Hmm. Totally. And I noticed that whenever I would have to shop before a photo shoot, it was like, what? You, what? You have a lot of clothes, Serena. Like, what is the need for this here? But it's like, well, I
Yeah,
needed to be really polished. I need to be really, but it's like, why? And you know what's really funny? When I look at my last photo shoot, and I didn't actually do a ton of shopping before that one. Um, but I have twinkly jacket stuff. I have leather
yeah,
skirts. I have like, there is kind of like the full spectrum of me, because my whole message is all of you is invited to the table.
exactly. Yeah,
When I look at the pictures, the ones that I get the best feedback from other people are the ones where I'm like in my little witch dress with my hat, and where I'm wearing the little other witchy dress with the leg warmers. Like,
yeah,
and I literally threw that in at the last second, because it was February, we had snow, and I had
yeah.
little shorts, this little kind of flowy dress, and fucking leg warmers. And it was this last minute thing, and it was the most comfortable I was in the entire shoot. I love the power in my leather skirt, like boss bitch,
Yeah.
whatever. And I get a lot of good feedback on that too. But it took me forever to even share that, because there was a part of me that was intimidated by myself.
Oh
And
wow.
sharing that with the world. Yeah. Like, it was like, okay, so are you ready for all of me? Because
But
this is me at
like I said, they were
100%.
great pictures though.
Thank you. Yeah, I love them now, but it really took a minute to like almost give myself permission to let myself be seen in full power, because I think I had a narrative that, like, especially as a plus size person, that like I'm supposed to be cute and I'm supposed to be friendly and my work needs to be
Mm,
approachable. But I am that as well. I'm also really fucking direct, and I do have a potty
yeah,
mouth, and I am really fiery. And like, if someone was expecting bubblegum because their only exposure to me were these cutesy pictures, they would be
yeah,
deeply terrified when they had a one-on-one with me. They're like, who is this chick? Where's the
yeah,
sparkles? Like,
yeah.
why
Do
is
you
she
do
on
you feel
fire?
like, because I don't know about you, because I had a brand shoot not that long ago, and did you ever feel like when you looked at some of those pictures, it was almost like, who is this person? Not in a bad way, but almost like, wow, I didn't realize that that could be me.
Mm-hmm. My very first brand shoot was like that. And I remember
Yeah,
looking and having this moment with the photographer where I was almost in tears. And I was like, thank you for seeing me like this. I don't know that I'm ready to see me like this,
yeah,
but thank you for seeing me like this. And it was these really
yeah,
beautiful portraits. I think now that I do them like once or twice a year, like
yeah,
I tend to be a little bit more casual with it. So I'm not as
yeah,
shook. But the very first time I remember being like again, intimidated, because it was like, how did
yeah.
you find that in me? Because I didn't know I had that
Yes.
in me.
Yeah, because when you take a selfie yourself, that doesn't come out.
Mm-mm.
But when someone else is just snapping away, I guess, and they are able to get almost like that true essence of you that
And I
you
think that's the
sometimes don't
magic of
see
a great
yourself.
photographer, because it's
Mm.
not about the editing, it's about the
No,
truth.
yeah. Because I also have a thing where, like, I don't know about you, but a lot of people on social media, especially on Instagram, I get a lot of messages from people who do video editing,
Mm.
and I get asked, like, can we like edit a few videos for you? But the thing is, like, everyone is editing videos to look like Alex Hormozy, who is like big in the kind of entrepreneurial world.
Mm.
And I've had to actually go back to people and say, look, you clearly haven't looked at my profile, because what I promote is authenticity. So how would it look if I edited my videos? That
Mm.
is not me being authentic. That's me editing and making something look perfect when I'm trying to teach people that you don't need to be perfect.
That's interesting that you see it like that. I view it editing, and I'm not, are you talking about editing where it's like color correction and whatever, or are you talking about like content editing?
It's like the content editing. So like say like I, you know, a little while ago I when I released my book and I did like a video of each chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And what my process is, okay, I'm putting the phone here, I'm just talking about it. If I make mistakes, I don't edit those out. It's like here's the video. I just upload it. You know, and it's more those ones they've all got fancy captions. They highlight certain words to grab your attention.
Yeah.
All of that. And the thing is, there's so many people doing the same thing. It's like, where are you different?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like this is the problem with social media, is that it's an algorithm game. Because like for me, I'm very verbose, and having to get things into short form is physically painful sometimes. So I have to, usually what I do, because I can make longer videos on TikTok, is I'll make a longer video on TikTok, and then I'll sit there and go, what's the meat of this? And can I get that into 90 seconds for Instagram? And then I have to like continue to chop. I will say things like, if I'm doing a live, I don't worry, I'm off the cuff and whatever. But if I didn't say things, if I was trying to convey something and I also know that I've got like 90 seconds and I said it wrong, I'll say it again. But I'm a radio kid, so like I'm used to having to edit. I don't think of it as inauthenticity. I think of it as like getting to the heart of what I'm trying to say.
And I think that and I think it is different for different people. I guess like when I see certain people that I know who are doing the similar thing, and it's like, but why do you feel the need to do that? Like, I guess I can't wrap my head around it. Because if we're in this authenticity game and you're trying to teach other people not to, what's that word? To censor their own words and things like that. But then you're doing walk that. The talk. Exactly, and that comes down to embodiment.
It all comes back around.
Exactly. How are you actually embodying what you're trying to help people with? You know, and I don't know, maybe I'm just, I mean, my family have always said I've been kind of the rebel. I was like my granddad, he was the rebel. And it's like, you won't do things the way that people tell you to do them. It's almost like someone will tell me to do something and I have to be like, no, I have to go and do it like this. It's and not in a it's my way or the highway. It's just that I don't like your way, and I can get a similar result by doing it my way.
Well, and I think so. I'm just honoring of yourself.
And I think, you know, that's
to do.
You know, but I think that's what I feel self-development is about. It's about honoring yourself at the end of the day. And if we're not really supporting people to do that, then what are we doing?
We're taking their money and scamming them.
No, but and that's what it feels like, right?
Sorry?
And that's what it feels like.
That is what for them, yeah, because they've been sold this big transformation, this big promise that you can't deliver on, and what's the point? And on top of that, it makes them think that they've done something wrong, rather than that they didn't spiritual hard enough, rather than,
oh my God, yes, spiritual hard enough. Yeah, you just didn't want it enough, and that's why you haven't got the result that I told you would get.
Yeah, that I oversold you because it wasn't actually possible to do that in a weekend workshop.
Because that's not what I did. It took me 3 years to get to where I am.
Yeah, but don't worry, I can help you in 6 weeks.
Exactly. It's like
that's selling the shortcut, though, right?
Sorry?
That's selling the shortcut. That's like giving people the sexy, like, ooh, even though it's not true.
Yeah, but that's like, I mean, to me, it's almost like you're selling someone the orgasm without telling them how to get to the orgasm.
And the many channels and ways you can get there.
Exactly. And for some people, it just takes a little bit longer.
Yeah. true. But everyone just wants the orgasm. They just want to know how to get there. They don't want to know what they got to do.
Instant gratification.
Yeah. And that's the era we're in right now.
Yeah. And I guess that's why nervous system work it's very needed, but it's very hard to sell.
Mm-hmm. Thank God you've got all those other tools in your toolkit, so you can sell them on that stuff and then bring in the nervous system. Sell them what they want, give them what they need.
I'll give you your life purpose, reel them in, and then it'll be like, but it's going to take you about 9 months to get there because we need to work on your embodiment and connection.
Yeah.
But because again, with living your purpose, everybody wants to live their purpose, but not many people actually want to live their purpose.
They're afraid of
it. Well, it's that, and also because when you actually say to them, your purpose is just to be your most authentic self, it's like, whoa.
I don't have to fix anything. I don't have to change anything. What am I going to do with myself? How am I going to spend my money? How am I going to spend my time if I'm not trying to fix everything?
Exactly. It's really fun because a lot of people come to me specifically for that. I want to find my purpose. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, we can look at human design, we can look at gene keys, but what they're going to tell you is you got to be your most authentic self. And to do that, we've got to go deep into whatever it is that you're, feeling resistance to all the time. And that's where people don't want to go into it.
Well, they don't want to be in the discomfort. Not for 9 months. Not for 3 years or whatever.
No, and I think, you know what, that is the same with meditation though. When I hear people say that I can't meditate, my mind's not still, and this, that, and that, and it's like, no, it's not actually about your mind. You've been told it's about your mind. What it's actually about is you can't sit in the discomfort of not doing something. Of actually just being still and letting those thoughts go on in your mind. That's what the discomfort is.
Yeah, my first bits of meditation and why I struggled to actually keep a practice. Today is day 103 though, so like we're breaking the cycle. Thank you very much. But the first part of it was I was so busy in my head all the time that when I just sat down and did nothing, my brain was like, whoa. Well, we have some shit to talk about because you haven't had any capacity. So it was like, and I was like, guys, I'm supposed to be like quiet here. I was like, no, like we're doing it wrong. And I think that's the other thing is we get so caught up in like what the right meditation looks like. Not only do we not want to be in the discomfort, but we're so worried about fucking it up that we can't actually find the tools that actually work for us and fit into our lives.
Maybe we just need to just fuck everything up.
Let it be messy.
Yeah.
Let it be imperfect.
But I think people just are not comfortable with doing that. It's really funny because so I created a Facebook group earlier this year to create community. And in the last few weeks and months where I've been like rethinking my business and stuff, I've been like, you know what, I think I need to just let it go. It's not something where I feel actually my skills or my service is best placed. And one of the members of the group, she actually contacted me and she said, if I was doing something like that and I closed the group, I would feel like a failure. And she said to me, but I just see you as being brave of not just carrying on with something that isn't working.
Which means she's not projecting her shit onto you, which is beautiful.
Yeah. But I also said to her, but why would you feel that you're a failure? But you see me as brave? Because we're not any different.
Yeah, that's just like phase 2. Phase 1 is recognizing the judgment in the first place. Phase 2 is actually giving it to yourself the same grace.
Yeah. And it was just very interesting that she said that to me. And because No, there would have been a time where I probably would have thought, oh my God, I can't give this up. Well, actually, no, the program that we were in, it wasn't that long ago. But it was like, I really wanted to leave. And I was like, no, I can't. I cannot fail at this. I cannot give this up. And I went through and I did it all. So even like 3 years ago, I would have seen myself as a failure for not
Mm-hmm.
finishing something. Whereas now it's like, well, no, but where is my time, my energy most needed?
Mm-hmm. It's a big
It's not
difference.
in this Facebook group.
And it's such an honoring of you as well,
Mm.
which, like, yes, it's brave, but it's also like a fierce declaration of the value you place on yourself, because you're not willing
Mm.
to overgive and sacrifice in areas that are not a good use of your energy,
Yeah.
regardless of
And
what other people expect.
yeah, exactly. Because, it did cross my mind. It was like, oh my God, am I letting these women down?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's only natural when we have things like that. But I was just like, but you know what? The thing that I'm going to be doing instead, they can still come on that journey if they so want to.
Mm-hmm. Because
It's
not
not
letting
that
them down would have been letting yourself down. So what makes
exactly.
them, it's almost the reverse of what you had the conversation with that woman. What would make them more
Mm,
important than you?
yeah. But also, I knew that even by letting down these people, or if I didn't let these people down, there would be a whole lot of people that I actually would be letting down.
Mm-hmm.
People I don't even know about yet.
Mm-hmm.
And
Because
I
your
think that's where
capacity
we get to yeah,
window of tolerance shrinks.
exactly. And that's
Yeah.
where we get to recognize, like, because I know when we talk about things like boundaries and toxic people and all of that kind of thing, and it's very easy to be like, no, I'm just cutting those people off. My energy's no good there. But it's about actually really looking at your energy.
Mm-hmm.
Is it actually any good there? Or are you just doing that because that's what you've been taught to do and is
And
the
because
best
you're
thing for
so
you?
discomfort averse that you
Yeah,
would rather cut and run, which is not to say don't cut people out. I also cut people out, but
yeah, me
you
too.
do have to have that moment before of, am I doing this because it's the easy way, or am I doing this because I'm fucking done and I'm going to honor myself?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, it's like, if you don't know yourself, how are you supposed to be able to tell the difference?
Exactly. It's all the self acceptance, the self trust,
Mm-hmm.
and the real self love.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Like
it's not
actual, not
the
bubble bath self-love, like
yeah,
real self-love.
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Like not the bubble baths and the spa days.
Yeah.
It's the actual self love. And it's hard for people to do that. It takes a long time to be able to really, I think, get to that point.
Mm-hmm. The permission,
Yeah.
the
Mm,
deservingness, like all of it.
yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, whatever, we can get into the patriarchy. That's a whole other conversation. This has been absolutely beautiful. Where can people find you online? Where do you hang out?
Well, they can find me on Instagram at harmish.core. And you can also now find me on Substack because I have pivoted my a bit of my business over that way, just to help more people and in a different way.
Yeah.
Um, I have a Substack called Awake in Life.
Love it.
So I literally put the first post up yesterday, so please don't go and like look and think there's like 100 posts to read through, but it's going to be a regular thing. So, I'll be just talking
Congratulations.
about, yeah, thank you, like talking about mental health, human design, gene keys, coaching, life in general, everything
We'll get all
in
the
there
links
really.
in the notes, so that way it's easy
Yeah,
for people to find you,
yeah.
because
But I
you
mean, I think
are
they're the
massive.
main ones that I'm probably on is Instagram and Substack now. So
Yeah. And your website,
yeah,
so they can find out all your beautiful
yeah,
services.
exactly.
Yeah.
Until they change.
Till they change, but you know what? That's okay. Because if you snooze, you lose. So if you want what she's offering right now, you got to jump on it, because
Yeah,
it's going to change
basically. I
again
think
as she does.
I think to be honest, the only things that are really going to stay the same are the human design and gene key readings. Everything else, like the coaching programs, because I am also going to start working with men,
Mm.
they will change a little bit. So yeah.
We've got more conversations to have. I'm just so nosy. I want to
I
know.
know, I was going to say that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the replay. We do these conversations once a month, and it is always just such a joy to get to hear about other women's journeys. Goodbye until next time. Thank you.